Hi there, and welcome to the HDFS Career Podcast. My name is Dr. Lori Bullock, and I'm an assistant professor in human development and family studies at MSU. I teach several courses in the department, and one of them is HDFS 270, which introduces students to this major and to the field of family science. Quite often, students who are new to our major are not quite sure of the career options they have with a degree in human development and family studies. Some students know exactly what they want to do, and some students aren't quite sure and can sometimes feel overwhelmed. And there are other students who are in our major but plan to pursue a career in the healthcare field. These would be students who know that they want to be nurses or doctors or child life specialists, occupational therapists, and so on. The purpose of this podcast is to bring professionals on from many different areas. Each episode, I invite a professional from the community who has a background in HDFS or one that is similar to HDFS. I'm so excited you joined the podcast, and I hope today's episode will be helpful to you as you consider your career options. Hello, HDFS students and colleagues. Welcome to the HDFS Career Podcast, where we talk with professionals who have a background in HDFS or one that is similar to HDFS, and we find out about their career journey. I'm really excited for you to meet today's guest. Her name is Kourtni Marshall, and she is a benefits and eligibility specialist at Action Behavior Centers. Kourtni works for a mental health service company that provides behavioral therapy for children who have been diagnosed with autism. She graduated with her Bachelor of Arts degree in Human Development and Family Studies with a minor in Women's Studies in 2021. And she began working as a behavioral technician in Houston, Texas, where she moved shortly after graduating college. She later moved to a corporate position where she focuses on patient onboarding and patient onboarding and accessibility. Kourtni works from home and has just completed her master's degree in health administration from Louisiana State University. Kourtni, thank you so much for joining the podcast today to talk with me about your career experiences. I am so excited to have you here, and I know my students are going to be excited to learn from you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to share anything that will be helpful.
Good. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it so much. I know students have really been enjoying this and finding out, that everybody has a different path, and there is no right or wrong answer, no right or wrong way to go. So,
Yeah.
great. So, can you talk to us a little bit about you, about who you are, and what you've been up to since you graduated?
Yeah, so I actually was a transfer student to Michigan State. So I kind of came in and didn't really know why I was a bio major when I first transferred. And then they didn't take any of my STEM credits and told me I had
Oh
to
no.
start over. And I remember I was just like really confused on what I was gonna do because all these classes that I took didn't count. And so luckily my freshman year at my previous institution, I took some child development classes and I liked it. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna see if they have a space open and I'll change my mind later. And then I never did. And I ended up graduating because I loved all of my classes. After that, I like moved very, very quickly. So I graduated and I moved the next morning. Um, so it was a very quick turnaround. I think like it took me a while to figure out what did I really want to do with my degree, where I was going to use it, and then I had to take a lot of advice from my peers. And luckily, a lot of my peers had the same undergrad that I had and kind of figuring out, like you were saying, everybody has the same path. So I figured out, like, what am I passionate about? How do I use my degree for what I'm passionate about? How do I grow with it? And then that led me into a different position and going back to school.
Well, that's awesome. And do you mind if I ask what drew you to Houston, Texas? Do you have family there? Is that where you grew up?
I really just wanted to go. Like, I just had a feeling that I moved to California when I was 18. That's where I went to undergrad, and I liked being in a new city. I knew I didn't want to go back to California, so I just pick Texas. And I had one of my friends, she also had the same undergrad and she moved to Houston from a different school. And she was just telling me about the opportunities. So I just applied.
Oh, great, great. And you're enjoying it there.
Yeah.
Happy with your move to Texas. That's great. Can you talk to us a little bit about, I know you started out as a behavior technician, right?
Mhm.
Working with children. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, what that was like?
That was very, very eye-opening for a lot of reasons, but it also was something I had never really considered. I didn't even really think about the field of ABA a lot, again, until I talked to some HDFS graduates that told me, like, hey, this is what I'm doing. And I was like, okay, because I didn't know what I want to do with my career at all. Like, I didn't have a clue and I didn't know how I was going to even get to Texas. But I got hired and I was like, hey, I have experience working with kids and I have an applicable degree. And luckily, like, they took me on and it was good. It was definitely a lot. It was a lot more challenging than I thought it was going to be, but it opened my eyes to, like, again, using my degree in a way that I didn't think that I was going to use it before. And then obviously opened up the corporate position later on. So I'm still using that experience in my position now, and I still have that on my resume to use at a later time. But yeah, it
Yeah,
was a good switch.
good, good. So you find yourself using some of the knowledge that you gained to kind of help you know what to do with your current position.
Yeah, and honestly, like I was saying, most people on my teams, because we would work in teams with our patients, all had the same undergrad. And so my supervisors all had the same undergrad. Even on my team now, a lot of us are internal hires. So we all graduated with the same degree. But it was good to listen to people because we all end up doing different things over time, but we all kind of came from that same background.
Okay, great. And so you had some, did they do some on-the-job training then to know what to do as a behavioral technician when you were working with children?
Yeah, so we had on the job training and then um if you continue going like the clinical route, there's even more like higher education training, but you kind of need that HFS background as an undergrad to go into the next phase. So I have a lot of friends that went that route, and you just continued and certifications grew, so they went that way.
All right, great. And I'm gonna ask about your current position, but first I wondered, would you mind describing what a typical day was like as a behavioral technician?
Yeah, so I had probably 4 to 5 patients a day, and I usually had like an hour, 2 hour time slots with them. And so we went over a lot of just basic skills, cognitive, social skills. And a lot of that job requires a lot of patience, flexibility, creativity, just understanding children and like how to work with them and grow with them. So I work with kids for those basic skills, but also like again, those life skills like toilet training, feeding, um, following behavioral plans, things like that. That's usually what my day-to-day was. Um, on any given day. So I usually saw 4 to 5 patients that were on my team.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And then so now you do onboarding and benefits analysis. Can
Yeah.
you talk a little bit about that, what
Yep,
that
so I
is?
moved into the benefits and eligibility position, because I really, like I said, I didn't know, well, I knew what I was doing, but I knew I wanted to grow with it. And I didn't want to go the provider route. Didn't want to like, that just wasn't what I was passionate about. And so my manager at the time kind of asked me, like, what do you want to do? Like, where is this gonna go? And I realized, like, again, a part of even the HFS background, which is understanding people who come from different environments. And so working with the special needs population, I realized like the deficit between like the kids that could come in and the kids that didn't because the services are so expensive. So I realized accessibility was a lot of what I wanted to do, that I wanted to help families, but I didn't think that I was gonna be able to do it from the provider route. So I went more into that administration part of like, how do we get families in and how do we get kids services? So I moved on to that to kind of work the back end route of getting kids those services.
I love that. That's great. And it's so important too that
Yeah,
because parents need that that support and somebody who is understanding for them.
yeah.
Great. So can you talk about what a typical day is like in that position?
Yeah, so our team does a lot of the insurance part. I kind of moved up a little bit, so I kind of like manage more, but before then, I was just doing a lot of insurance eligibility, again, making sure that kids had coverage, and if they didn't, how do we get them coverage? And making sure that insurance companies are also paying for these services. Kind of working with our team though, just seeing how can we get more kids through the door and what type of plans can we work with. That was a lot of just managing those calls from the insurance companies, working internally with our teams to figure out how do we get as many kids as possible through that door.
Okay. Great. That's really helpful to know about. And you said now you manage, so you kind of manage a team of people?
Yeah, so I've grown a little bit to just kind of delegate downward. So I kind of did that, worked my way up, and now I do a lot of delegating, auditing, things like that.
Okay. All right. Very interesting. Really interesting stuff. Um, eh, so do you mind if I asked you, how do you manage work-life balance? Because you said you work remotely now, and so you're at home where it might be tempting to do, like laundry and stuff like that, or maybe you are able to have
Yeah.
laundry going in the background while you're doing your work. So, can you talk about how you manage work-life balance?
Yeah, luckily I have a very flexible schedule. I mean, I still work obviously within like the normal work day, but I have a very flexible schedule. And that's kind of like just the culture of our company. Our CEO is very laid back, like a lot of our managers are laid back. So we do obviously work a lot, but I think working from home, I had to separate work from my day to day. So I may like do a couple errands during the day, like around the house, but like at 4 or 5 o'clock, I have to just walk away from the computer. But I think honestly, the pandemic forced so many people at home. So I feel like it's easier now than maybe it would have been like 2, 3 years ago.
That makes sense,
Mhm.
because you got used to it as a student a little bit, and then and now your job, you're able to transition to working remotely fairly easily then, and finding the way to make sure you do your work, but then also making sure you, like you said, put it aside, shut your
Mhm.
computer down.
Yeah, that
And
actually was one of my like interview questions when I got my position, and he asked like, "Can you manage working from home? Like, do you know how to balance? Do you know how to have like your own work boundaries?" And I was like, "Yeah, I got a degree from home, so I think that I can manage this." And it luckily ended up working out.
yeah, that's good. And so you were able to just incorporate those lessons learned, the challenges that went along with when we suddenly went remote during COVID, but use that as a strength because you adjusted and able to use that. So that's good. That's great. Um, and so you already kind of talked a little bit about what made you choose your career path. You were kind of looking for something, and you had friends who were working in the behavioral health field world.
Mhm.
And you recently graduated with a master's in health administration. Can you talk a little bit about that and explain what is a degree in health administration and what will you be able to do with that?
Yeah, so basically that degree is just managing healthcare. Like that is kind of organizing the behind the scenes. So at my old clinic, I talked to my clinical director and my operations manager all the time. I talked to both of them every day, and I was like, "What do you do? What do you do? How do I get there? What's the plan?" And so she had me sit in on her meetings. She was like, you can follow what I do, or you can like look to see what I do. And I had no idea, even like I worked at an outpatient clinic, but I had no idea just how much goes into that process. So a lot of my degree was learning how to manage people and learning how to understand different insurance payers and people who without insurance and government agencies that help plan and pay for things. Um, Marketing, HR, health ethics. It was just a whole combination of administrative things and processes. And then I just had to figure out where I wanted to go with that. But a lot of people can go very different directions. So we have people that I know are going more of like the finance route, and they're doing the money management of healthcare, and people are doing, like I was saying, marketing, operations, HR, legal, health information systems. There's a lot of different directions people can go.
Okay, so it sounds like you have some movement that you could choose.
Yeah.
You could stay with what you're doing now if you're really enjoying that, or you can gain some experiences and focus on some of those other skills that you gained in your degree program.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to pick something that I would always be able to bargain with. Like I wanted a program that I know will never lose job security, which is pretty much healthcare. You're always going to need healthcare, and because you always need that, you're always going to need people to manage it. So try to pick something I liked that was never going to lose its value.
Yeah. And you like managing people?
Yeah, I think I realized, like, again, most of what I think I can bring to these families is going to be behind the scenes. And
Mhm.
so that's where those decisions that were made. When I was doing things clinically, I found out like, what I don't like, what I do like, what I wish you were doing more of. And those are kind of those higher up decisions that have to be made. So I kind of wanted to go that route.
Okay, great. And then so the talking with y- your managers, and they let you shadow them a little bit, sounds like, and
Yeah.
getting involved. And so you were like, oh, I really enjoy this. I really like
Hmm.
this. I feel like I'm making a difference in this way.
Yeah.
Yeah, good, good. For that, for the health administration degree, is it a 1 year degree or 1 year program, 2 years? How long did that take you?
For me, I did an accelerated program, and then I kind of accelerated that program. So I finished in a year, but I think most people took about a year and a half, 2 years. I was very a full-time student.
Okay.
So
And so
I
you were,
mine was faster.
I'm sorry, what was the last part I I
Honestly,
talked
mine was a
over?
little bit faster because I just went full-time, and I doubled up a lot of semesters.
Okay. And so you were able to do that and work at the same time?
Yeah, so luckily I think it would have been a lot more difficult if I was still working in the clinic, because most of my degree I was working at home. Um, it was a easier balance. I mean, it was still a lot, but it was a little bit easier to balance.
Okay. And can you talk a little bit about what was that transition like then into grad school? Were you able to transition into that pretty easily? Was it a heavy workload? What was that like?
It was definitely a transition because I took a year off. I took a year off because I needed it.
Mhm.
And I guess I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I didn't want to rush into a program I wasn't ready for. But it was rough because I was in an accelerated program, and they hit the ground running. They hit the ground running. I was super grateful that my program is structured for working people. So to get into the program, you have to be already employed in healthcare. So my professors were doctors or were lawyers, so they have full-time jobs too, which is good for help, but it's also they structured the class knowing that all of us have to work. So we can't be in front of the computer 8 hours a day. But it was an adjustment because I just wasn't used to being on anyone else's schedule but my own. So that was a shift. And then master's is very different than undergrad. Usually when you're undergrad, all of your peers are in school. versus none of my peers were in school. So I was the only one, that had an exam and I can't go to certain things or have a paper or I have to make a lot of sacrifices that I didn't have to make in undergrad because we all had the same shared experience.
That's really, I'm glad you pointed that out too, and on how that was different. Sounds like the workload was pretty intense. And then, as you said, managing, knowing that none of your peers are doing this also along with you. So couldn't really commiserate with them.
Mhm,
They might not have understood what you were going through. And just knowing that you
mhm.
had that time commitment.
Yeah, time commitment, and then I guess I think the great thing about getting older is like you have more money, so there's more things you can do. But then when you go back to school, it kind of puts you back into that student mindset of like, I can't do all these things because I have to be somewhere else. And I think for my program specifically, a lot of my professors, again, while they understood that we all were working, we had very definitive timelines and deadlines. And I think some of my online classes, the windows were a little bit bigger. So it'd be like, okay, it's due this week, but you have 2 weeks to work on it. Versus for my program and my master's, I may have had 5 days to work on it and then it was due after that. So I couldn't even really plan a lot of trips because I didn't know what I was going to be learning at that time. And if I had a computer with good enough Wi-Fi, would I even be in my hotel at that time? So I had to take a break from a lot of the things I did last year because I just couldn't fit it in a schedule, doing school and working.
Okay. So it sounds like you really had to focus
Mhm.
your time for one thing and your focus. And you just had to set other things aside for a year. But did you feel like that went really fast? Wasn't a bad thing to do to have to set other things aside?
Yeah, I do feel like it went fast, and I think, again, it helped so much my job being related to my degree. I think if they were very foreign things, it would have been harder, but I was using things I was learning in school at work, so it felt like it all was meshing together, so it wasn't as difficult because they weren't super separate concepts.
That's nice when that happens.
Yes.
Yeah, really nice when that happens. Good. And I wanted to ask, do you feel like that time that you took off between undergrad and grad school was helpful? Did it help prepare you, do you think, for grad school? Just having that mental break?
Yes, because when I graduated my undergrad, I don't think I was prepared to join a master's program. I don't think that I had the determination to see it through. I think getting my undergrad was so important to me that when I was done, I don't think that I could have picked it back up immediately and actually applied myself, nor did I know what I wanted to do. And then, nor did I know where a degree would even be useful. I do have some friends that went immediately after, and a lot of the trouble that they ran into was like they have this master's now that they don't know how they're gonna use, and, or they don't need it. That's the other thing. I wanted to make sure if I go to school again, I need this degree because it better help me out after I get it, and I don't think I would have had that same experience had I immediately jumped into a program right after.
It's really practical thinking, and good use of your resources then too,
Mm,
to go back when you were ready, not only mentally, but focused. And then, so that's a better use of your time and money,
yeah.
um, knowing that. Do you feel like you were a different kind of learner compared to undergrad, in the master's program?
Yes and no. I feel like in undergrad, I had a similar mindset of like, I just really want to see this through. So I was the same while getting my master's, but I had more working knowledge. So again, with the two kind of meshing a little bit, a lot of my projects and papers were about what I was seeing in my day to day. So I don't think, again, I would have been prepared to take those classes had I not waited because I didn't have any foundational knowledge. Like if I would have went and got a master's at HDFS, I probably would have been more prepared because it would have bled over. But because this was a little bit more different, I needed that working knowledge, and then I was able to apply other concepts later on.
That's so important too. And it sounds like it helped you to be very purposeful and focused in what you were learning to be able to
Yeah.
apply it right away.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's so really useful. Just so really great. Okay. And so do you have recommendations for students as they prepare for grad school?
I would say firstly, figure out what are you going for and why are you going? I think a lot of people got undergrad degrees because that's what was expected of them. Like I had the same expectations. I didn't grow up in a household that was like, hey, go to school if you want to. It was like, okay, you're 17, where are you applying? Where are you going? What's your plan? And a lot of people graduated with degrees they have no plan on using. And when you get your master's, it's hard. Like it's hard and it's a lot of commitment, a lot of sacrifice that you shouldn't be making if that's not what you want to do. Um, Also, find someone to pay for it. Like grad school is a lot more expensive too. Luckily, my job has like tuition assistance depending on where you go. But I still wish I would have found someone that would have just paid for it entirely, or I would have had like a job contingent on it. Like I said, finding someone to pay for it, and then also understanding just even if you take out loans, is that something that you can do at this time too? Because not everybody can afford loans, and repaying them on top of undergrad loans is a lot. So I definitely wouldn't make that decision on a whim or because you're kind of interested. I would make it because you know what you want to do or the direction you want to go in, and this degree is going to put you where you need to be. So I would ask
That's,
myself those questions before I even entertain the idea of going back to school.
I'm really glad you said that. Sounds like you have a very practical mindset too.
Hmm.
And, don't do something unless you know what you want to do with it or what it's for.
Hmm.
Um, and so that's great. I'm glad you explained that. Um, did your master's program, did that have any kind of certification that did you have to take like a certification or licensing exam or anything like that?
I didn't for mine. I know some of my friends who went for special education did, but for my particular program, I didn't need to get a certification at the end. I think I've been working on like some tech ones, but that's like a separate thing.
Yeah. Oh, I can see that. I can see that where that would help you in the work that you do, get
Hmm.
these different certifications. Okay. Do you have continuing ed credits that you have to do?
I don't. So once I was done, I was done.
Okay, good. Good. Might have to learn different systems, like you said, tech types of things
Hmm.
as you go and as those change.
Yeah.
All right, good. Um, do you in your work that you do you do networking and building connections outside? I mean, you probably do networking within your organization, but do you also network outside of your organization?
Yes, I think that is what was hard for me initially, but um you gotta just get out there. Like I don't know, like I don't know how a different way of explaining it other than you just have to get out there and talk to people. So I definitely network all the time, whenever I can, wherever I can. Um, yeah, just asking a lot of questions to a lot of different people and just seeing where people put you in direction. I feel like I use LinkedIn a lot. I've used previous employers, um, again, friends that have gone at different employers, friends that I've graduated with that are doing different things. Like we all keep each other in a loop just so everybody, gets a chance to grow. Yeah, you just have to just kind of rip the band-aid off and get out.
That's great. Yeah, that's good to hear too. And good to hear that you keep up with your peers,
Mhm.
from college, and keeping in touch with each other too. sounds like that kind of helps in the growth too, and that you kind of compare experiences.
Yeah, compare experiences for sure. And also for pay equity, I think that was a really big one. A lot of networking is also realizing people with the same background as you, like what are you getting paid? What type of roles do you have? Because when I graduated from college and I was applying to jobs, so I'd got different positions, and some of my friends had gotten different positions, and we all got different offer letters. And had I not reached out and said, "Hey, what did you get?" I would have accepted something lower, or they would have accepted something lower than either of us had. So networking also gives you, I think, a competitive value because you start knowing what does the market look like and what do other companies pay for, or what type of resources and opportunities are other people getting, and how do I get those? Or you can just be more appreciative of your own situation that maybe other companies aren't doing that, or they're not offering these things, and you can kind of wage that for yourself.
All right, so that's good. That sounds, like really helpful. Like you said, for yourself, figuring out what you want to do, and it sounds like you were very supportive of each other too.
Mhm.
Good, good. That's awesome to hear. Um, what advice do you have for students who might be interested in pursuing the career that you have now?
I would say, um, internships. Definitely internships. I actually am trying to go back to my internship from HDFS. Um, but yeah, I would say if you're still an undergrad, get an internship again that you actually care about, not just to get the credits out the way, but get one that you really are interested in and resource and network within that organization, that company. That would have been my biggest piece of advice. Because I loved my internship, but I was tunnel vision. And I was like, I
Mhm.
have to graduate. This is my last class. I'm gonna do what I need to do, and that's it. And now, years later, I want to go back. Like I did my internship with Health and Human Services with the state, and I want to go back. I want to go back to do that because I got the working knowledge. I got the degree. I got a master's, and I'm more suited for that department now. Like I said, I wish I would have asked more questions during my undergrad, planned on working there. I mean, I love the route that I went, but definitely be very intentional during your time because after everything speeds up. I feel like college feels really fast until you graduate and everything's 10 times faster. So I would have slowed down a lot and understood how valuable their undergrad is. Like that time, you're never gonna get it again. Like you're never gonna get that much freedom to start over or to fail and try again as you do during your undergrad. So I would slow down and think. Because I said in your master's, you can't really change it. Like you applied for that and you have to stick it through. If you don't want to do it anymore, you have to apply somewhere else for a different program. But your undergrad, you can experiment. You can take as many classes as you want and say, I don't want to do this anymore. I want a new major. You can do the same thing over, or you can get a new minor or something like that. But I would slow down and ask a lot of questions, try different things, and just see what meshes. That's probably what I wish I would have done that more because I didn't. And I just was too tunnel visioned to see what was like around me.
Okay. I'm really glad you said those things. Really helpful to know because I think I see many students who, like you said, you just wanted to get done. And
Mhm.
so with the internship, you might, some students might not really look for something that they're interested in knowing more about and whether it's a good fit for them. And so I'm glad you mentioned that and how that would be useful.
And
Good
then
use
also
of time.
using like Michigan State resources like that. There are so many resources that I don't have because I like my master's program was online. So I can't go to my advisor in person and ask them about things. I can't, my professors aren't as accessible. So use those resources around you because there are so many. And if you think that there aren't, if you ask someone, they will point you in the right direction. But yeah, using those resources because you might not get them after you graduate and go into a different field, or if you go into higher education, they may not be the same. But Michigan State is very, very big community. So you can always ask for help from someone.
That's great. That's great advice.
Mhm.
Wonderful. So what do you see for yourself in terms of your future, in terms of your career?
I have a couple goals. In my head, if I were to stay with my current company, I just want to keep moving up to see how high I can get. Um, I definitely want to be a director of either director of operations or of care coordination or something like that. Again, I think when I figured out my master's, I wanted to make sure I also still valued my undergrad. So I know that I want to stay in family services some type of way. Either it's going to be ABA with kids or team managing, maybe even like a therapy company for adults or for teens or something. I know that I want to work with families. It's just making that connection between families and healthcare. But that's my goal. Wherever I can get in there and excel, that's wherever I want to go.
Sound like there's some really great goals. So that's good. That's good. I hope you, and it sounds like you're on your way, in some of those directions. You've already moved up. And so it sounds like you've
I'm
set yourself
trying.
up well. Yeah, that's good. And so my last question is it okay if students contact you if they have questions?
Yeah, that's fine. Like I said, I love working with people. We're all working towards not the same goal, but similar goals. So I think we all can help each other out.
Awesome. Great. I'll put your email address in the episode description then. And so students can reach out to you through there or maybe through LinkedIn. And
Yeah, either one
uh,
is fine.
okay, great. Thank you so much for that. Well, thank you for joining the episode today and for letting me, pick your brain and your experiences and talking with me about your career journey. It's been
Thank
great to
you.
catch up with you.
Thank you. This is fun.
Thank you again for joining today's episode of the HDFS Career Podcast. I hope you enjoyed meeting Kourtni Marshall and learning about her career journey. She shared so much information that I think is going to be really useful for a lot of you about her career journey and what she does now and her the degree that she just completed. So I hope that is helpful to you too. As I mentioned at the end of the interview, Kourtni has given permission so that I can share her contact information. So you can find her email address in the episode description. She would be happy to answer any questions that you might have about pursuing a similar career to what she has, or even some of the transitions that she's experienced, or about what grad school is like. So she would be happy to answer your questions. Please join me again soon as I interview more people, more professionals to learn about the many options that you have available to you with an HDFS degree. Enjoy the rest of your day.